don't know why I feel moved to ask this question, and I've been inside in a little bit of turmoil because it'll make me seem different than what I am in the inside. But the question of love of life, I had a little glitch from that because in our culture I feel like we have such a love of life to the extent where the example that came up for me is that my father's wife had cancer, terminal cancer, and you know there's such a push for doing all of these things that made her life misery, her last few months of life misery, for the sake of keeping her alive. And there's something about a distinction between love of life, I don't know, it's almost like a humility that we need to say, well, you know, just because you've had something, I don't know how to describe it, but just because you may, I'm a human being and I deserve everything that there is to keep me alive. Or, you know, why do we put dogs to sleep when they're suffering? I mean, it's just like there's something that's not quite right with that in me. The idea of it, that, what, can you speak about that? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Should we flip a coin? That's such a, we could talk a couple of hours on this. Let's.
Yeah, because it's different in other countries.
Yeah.
This whole idea of why I deserve to live.
It's coming to grips, I believe, with the totality of your life. And to me, the totality of your life encompasses the fact that you won't be here at some point. Mm-hmm. And I recently had a very close friend who was diagnosed with a very, very serious illness, and was handling it, I thought, pretty well, but was moving into a freak-out mode. And I said, okay, I will talk with you about this, but I want you to like lighten up from this. And she said, well, you know, I could die from this. And I said, you are going to die. If it's either this or something else. But once you come to the deep understanding that you will die, that your time on this planet is finite, it is amazingly liberating because you begin to see every day as a gift. So every day in my personal prayer, meditation, and ritual, I remind myself that today could be the day that I die. And therefore, I ask for four things. Number one, I ask for a good life, which I have. I also ask for a good death. Now, good death to me is not going out, you know, hooked into all these drugs. I can't even feel myself anymore. I'm just trying to preserve a heartbeat so that someone, you know, it's like, no, I want, I'm aiming for somewhere between good and spectacular, okay? The third thing I ask for is a good transition. Now, I don't know what the transition is, but every culture that looks at death says there's a transition. Something happens after you're gone. It doesn't, you, whatever that essence is, don't stop. Every single culture says that. So I actually believe that something's going to happen. I don't have to even figure out what's going to happen. I'll be there and I'll figure it out when I get there, you know. And the fourth thing I ask for is a good continuance. Now, everybody says something goes on. Whatever it is, I want it to be good, okay? And by doing this and reminding myself of this every day, I can be on a very different level with regard to that. Say one more thing about this. I had a friend who was a hospital chaplain, and he said, most of his work was going to hospitals and giving people permission to die. That we are in this culture that because we don't believe that there's a transition and there's a continuance, we have a doctrine in a religion that we go to on Sunday that says there's a continuation, but we don't really act that way. And because we don't act that way, we don't have we cling to this life, and we think we're disappointing our family by dying or whatever. And so he says most of the time I just go in and say it's okay to go now, and then they go, and then everybody, they are eased on through their transition. And so love of life, I think when you're saying love of life, you're not talking about I need to stay and hang in this existence and keep my heart beating as long as you possibly can, but you're talking about something else.
Exactly, and you answered it beautifully. I think that life includes death. Duh. And, so love of life means love of life, not fear of death. Or let's embalm ourselves with technological apparatus to prove what? To prove that science doesn't know anything about death, that it's scared about death. So, I think you answered it very well. The true understanding of life means a graceful exit. And as some of you know, death can be among the most beautiful moments of life. I'm thinking right now of a friend who died of AIDS. He was a student of mine. And he was a psychiatric nurse, so he knew about what he was doing when he was on the oxygen mask. And he knew that once he took the oxygen mask off, he'd have 45 minutes to live. And his family was there. He had 7 brothers and sisters in the intensive care ward there. So he gave the signal to remove the mask. In that 45 minutes, he hugged each of his brothers and siblings and parents, and he wrote on a pad, there is no death, there is only life. And he died. And I wasn't there, I happened to be out of town. But the nurse told me, and nurses are they see everything, they're pretty down-to-earth people. She said there was a glow in the room for 24 hours. She'd never, so death can be very beautiful. And it can be a very creative act. I told some stories this morning about my mother's approach to her death. And it was very special. I remember my sister-in-law, one of my sisters,